So the Las Vegas Raiders are switching back to Jackson Powers-Johnson at the right guard position. Pete Carroll talked about the offensive line yesterday, and I want to talk about some of what he had to say because it's not the exact changes that all of us kind of want. Plus, we'll get into the secondary a little bit. The secondary to me had massive struggles and key moments against the Commanders, and I almost feel like teams may be able to take advantage of the Raiders as we kind of continue because of the defensive scheme. I don't think the players are necessarily the issue, but I think the scheme has some flaws. And we're going to talk about it. We'll have a couple other updates as well, but first, let's get right into this Jackson Powers-Johnson situation. JPJ, if you guys did not know, did not play for the Raiders in this game. I think most people understand he didn't play at this point, but he did not play against the Commanders, but he was healthy. He could have actually played, and Pete Carroll was asked about this right after the game ended. And he basically told us that we decided not to go with Jackson Powers-Johnson because he obviously had the injury coming back. We felt like, we have a short week going into this Commanders game, and it just kind of made sense to just continue with Alex Kappa for one more game. Just kind of allows the Raiders to have like that, second straight week. Same guys are just supposed to kind of like going back and forth between guys. So obviously Pete Carroll felt like it was the right decision to go with Alex Kappa. Now that obviously did not work. Kappa had a terrible game against the Commanders. The guy gave up multiple pressures, multiple quarterback hits. The guy just was not good against the Commanders, and the Commanders even took advantage of him a little bit. They would line up Daron Payne right over him. They, essentially put guys in the A-gaps. So we couldn't double team and help, and Daron Payne just, essentially took advantage of a guy like Kappa. And I talked about this in yesterday's film breakdown, so if you guys want to check this out, go check that video out. We talked about Kappa and some of the struggles and some of what the Commanders are kind of doing. But with that, Pete Carroll did confirm to us that Alex Kappa's coming out and that Jackson Powers-Johnson will be back at that right guard position. Now I'm going to let you guys listen to this, and then we'll talk about this on the other side.
We're working on some stuff. We're going to want to see JPJ come back to action and get back involved. We have to, in all phases of it, we got to get off the football better and make more of the running game. There's not enough happening there to act on the play pass game, and we're just not getting enough. So we just got to keep working it. We got the guys we got, and there's and we need to keep developing and keep building on it.
So would that be competition at the right guard spot or the entire line possibly?
We're working at the right guard spot. Our young guys they'll get their turn sometime, but they're not ready yet. So we have what we have, and we got to make our guys do better, and we got to fit it together better than we have.
So Pete Carroll is basically saying we are going to watch Jackson Powers-Johnson come back to action and get back involved. He also said that he wants to, make better of the run game, right? Essentially, the run game has to be a little bit better as we kind of go forward. Now, one of the things I will say is Raiders actually had a little bit more success running the football. If you guys look at some of the stats, the Raiders' offensive line was the fourth worst after week 2. Now they're ranked, I believe, around 15 or 16. So they definitely had more success. Now, some of that could be, in garbage time around when the Commanders kind of already had won the game. We did have some chunk plays kind of come at that point. So these stats don't necessarily factor that in. But we did definitely find a little bit more success. Now, obviously, we have to get better. And I do think adding Jackson Powers-Johnson back to the lineup does do that. Now, I should also just kind of throw this out there. I put it out there that I think the Raiders need to go with JPJ at center. And I know a lot of you guys agree with me on that. Pete Carroll basically said he does not plan to make any sort of change, right? Outside of the right guard position, there's really no other change that he's going to make at this point. Here's the thing. Dylan Parham struggled as well for the Raiders, so it's not like it was just Alex Kappa. In fact, Alex Kappa had some good moments on tape as well. It wasn't just like he got beat up on every freaking play. And the same thing could be said for Dylan Parham, but what the Raiders need is they need guys that can just consistently hold up. Center, guard are so much easier than offensive tackles. If you're an offensive line and you struggle at offensive tackle, that's okay. It's a hard position to find quality players at. On the inside, it is super, super, super easy. Literally, every year you get offensive linemen that come out that play center or guard that are actually really good football players. But the thing is, you just got to make those investments and you got to pick the right guys. The Lions have a guy in Tate Ratledge. Really liked this guy when he was with Georgia. I don't know exactly what round he was picked in. I don't think he was a first-round pick. I'm pretty sure he was either a second or a third-round pick. And he looks really, really good. He looks like one of the top guards in the NFL, and he's just a rookie this season. They have another guy at left guard, Christian Mahogany, came out of, I believe it was Boston College. I think this is his second season. I was huge on this guy. Really wanted him, and I think he was like a late round pick. I think he was a 7th round pick. He's a really good left guard as well. Now, he had some health issues, which was part of why he kind of fell. But, finding good guards is super easy. And right now, the Raiders don't have that, right? Yes, they have Jackson Powers-Johnson. But regardless of that, your center and left guard, you're still going to have some struggles there. And I think the Raiders would be a lot better just going back to the offensive line we had last year. Jordan Meredith played left guard. Dylan Parham played right guard. You can swap the two. You can leave Parham at left guard if you want. Put Meredith at right guard or even Kappa. But put Jackson Powers-Johnson back at center. To me, the tape does not lie. Like, JPJ is an all-pro caliber player at the center position. The guy is really, really good. And I feel like the Raiders are doing a disservice right now. Not only to Jackson Powers-Johnson by not letting him develop at his natural position, but to us fans, right? Like, we all have eyes. We can all watch what's kind of happening out there. And for some reason, the Raiders want to try to, push this combo of offensive linemen that don't make sense. And, some people have said the Raiders should fire Pete Carroll's son, who's our offensive line coach and our pass game coordinator. The issue I would have right now firing Brendan Carroll is that, at this point, it's not even Brendan Carroll's decision to keep JPJ out, right? That's a head coach decision. To keep the offensive line the way it is not on the offensive line coach. This is 100% a decision by the head coach, right? To keep Jackson Powers-Johnson at right guard as opposed to center, that's not on the offensive line coach. So I want to clarify that because I think some people think the offensive line coach gets to make these decisions. That's not the case, especially here. We'll see what ends up happening as we kind of go forward on the offensive line. I do like the fact that JPJ will be back at center, or at right guard specifically. Having JPJ out there versus not having them out there, I think the offensive line's a lot better with him out there. You're going to be able to slide towards Dylan Parham more with the center. You can leave JPJ in one-on-one situations more, and that's going to make the offensive line better in pass pro. Now, that doesn't mean JPJ won't have plays where he'll lose. JPJ, at the end of the day, is still super, super inexperienced when it comes to the NFL. The Raiders have kind of made a mistake, in my opinion, with the way they've handled Powers-Johnson. Early on, they said, we want to make this guy a guard. Then they swapped him over to center. They let him be the center the entire offseason. Even coming into camp, he was the starting center. And then they moved him back over to right guard. Either keep him at right guard and let him train as a guard in the offseason, or leave him as a center and let him train as a center. I feel like the Raiders have switched JPJ around so much where it's kind of a disservice to him. Regardless, having him out there will make it better as the Raiders kind of go forward. Now I want to go ahead and just switch focus, and I want to talk a little bit about the Las Vegas Raiders struggling when it comes to the secondary. I feel like when we played the Chargers in week 2, I felt like there was just too many chunk plays that the Raiders are kind of giving up. We gave up a lot of yards against the Chargers, and we got some stops down in the red zone area. And we forced some field goals, but I felt like the Chargers were able to pick apart our defense super quickly, even against the Patriots. Now, it was a wet day against the Patriots. Drake May also missed a couple of throws. But even in that game, the first game of the season, the Raiders had holes in their coverage. And coming up against the Commanders, the Commanders have a great offensive coordinator over there. Coming up against the Commanders, their coach, Cliff Kingsbury, took advantage of the fact that the Raiders run cover 3 as high of a rate as they do. The Raiders come out in cover 3. The Commanders know exactly what it is, and they know exactly how to beat it, and they beat it just like that. And it doesn't help that the Raiders have linebackers, sometimes 3 or 4 of them out there on the field. It doesn't help that the Raiders are running the most base defense right now in the entire NFL. They've called more base defense with 3 or 4 linebackers than any other team in the NFL. And to me, that's an issue right there. When you look at the Raiders on the defensive side, they'll come out and cover 3. The Commanders ran a couple of curl concepts where they just quickly hit their wide receiver who would stop on a dime. Keep in mind, we're in cover 3, so the cornerback is going to play off a little bit. Right? He has to play over the top, essentially, in a cover 3. And you can essentially fit a ball right in between the mid hooks and the vertical hooks. But what you got to do is you just got to get a wide receiver, a running back, or a tight end into the flats. That's going to get that vertical hook guy, and it's going to force him to go a little bit further outside. And in that, you get that little gap that kind of opens up. Now, every defense has ways to beat. But when you're a team that runs cover 3 heavy, and you're a team that doesn't mix coverages, you're a team that's kind of struggling, you have to run a lot of base, so you might not have that speed or quickness, you're going to get exposed. And the Raiders definitely got exposed a ton this past week against the Commanders, at least in the back end. And this isn't one of those teams where it's like, you don't have good players, which is why you're getting beat so much. I just think that in the modern NFL, the heavy cover 3 teams just don't work. And Also keep this in mind, the Commanders do run the cover 3 shell, right? And it's not technically called a cover 3 shell. It's called a one high shell, right? One safety high. The Commanders do run that a lot as well, the same with the Raiders do, right? One high shell. But the Raiders run cover 3 out of that shell. The Commanders run mostly cover 1 out of that shell, right? So the Commanders are a heavy man-to-man team, which is not zone, right? It's a completely different type of defense. When you run cover 3 and you're a heavy cover 3 team, you're just telling this opposing team, this opposing coordinator, that this is what we're going to do. There was a 3rd and 2 play where the Commanders needed to pick up a first down. The Raiders showed cover 3, and it was so easy for these guys to just know exactly what they're going to do, exactly how to pick it up. And they picked up 12 yards. The tight end runs into the flat. The wide receiver runs a hitch. You're just not going to be able to stop these type of quick hitting plays if you're going to show the defense and run the same defense. There was another play a little bit later on. Caillou Blue-Kelly ended up getting benched in this game, and Darren Porter ended up coming in. Caillou Blue-Kelly got benched because he ended up getting beat for a 56-yard touchdown to Terry McLaurin. Now, on this play here, McLaurin just ends up running like a double move where Caillou Blue-Kelly kind of falls forward. He ends up trying to jump it. Now, Caillou Blue-Kelly obviously got beat on that 56-yard touchdown. A little bit later on, we had a 43-yard touchdown as well. A lot of people overlooked this play because the game was already kind of over. But the defense, once again, was out of their coverage, right? It looks like the Raiders are trying to blitz. It's a man-to-man situation. It looks like cover 0 to me. And Jeremy Chinn's going to bump over the defensive backs because of this motion. And then for some reason, Jeremy Chinn does not pick up the deep cross. Marcus Mariota hits it for 43 yards. I've seen multiple snaps where guys are a little confused in the back end. They don't 100% know every single rule within the defense. And I think that's kind of an issue right now. And again, we're only really like 3 games into it. And the first game really doesn't count all that much because we were playing a second-year quarterback, which we don't know if he's good. Also, the weather was kind of bad. But in weeks 2 and 3, and even then, like the 3rd game, like against Marcus Mariota, that's a backup quarterback technically. We're exposed a little bit out there, right? There are moments where they're able to just kind of pick apart and pick yards up at will, essentially. Now, I also want to talk a little bit about why I don't personally like the cover 3 defense. Not only is it easy, it's not that I don't like the cover 3, like the zone concept, right? You can mix in every type of coverage. But the thing is, the Raiders are a heavy cover 3. We run more cover 3 than any other team in the NFL. Here's the thing. When you're going to show that, hey, we're a cover 3 team and the other team knows it's a cover 3 and you're showing the cover 3 shell, right? The one high safety. It's just easy to draw up plays and to take advantage of it. We're about to play Ben Johnson in this upcoming game. And I know some people don't think he's a good coach because he struggled in weeks 1 and 2. They just put up, I think, over 30 points on the Dallas Cowboys. Ben Johnson ran a really good game. They designed a lot of, cover 3 beaters. They designed some cover 2 beaters. They designed plays where the Cowboys would show something, come out in it, and they just designed plays that beat those coverages. Now, the Raiders are a heavy cover 3 team, so we're going to come into this game, and Ben Johnson knows what the Raiders are going to kind of do, right? One of the issues that I also have with the Raiders defense is, when you're showing that one safety deep look as much as the Raiders kind of show, not only is it easy for teams to kind of know what you're doing, but they're also able to pick up chunk yards. The reason why teams started playing a lot of 2 shell high was because of Patrick Mahomes. The guy was scoring 50 points on every team. So teams realized that, hey, let's make these guys, essentially pick up 3 yards here, 5 yards here, 6 yards here, and make them drive a 15-play drive essentially to score a touchdown, right? Don't give them anything super quickly. The Raiders have given up a couple of touchdowns super quickly, right over the top. If you look at the best defenses right now in the NFL, they all play primarily, not 100% of the time, but primarily they play 2 safeties deep. Right now, the top 5 defenses in terms of points, the Packers, the Seahawks, the 49ers, the Chargers, the Cardinals. Those 5 teams are the best defenses in terms of points allowed. The Arizona Cardinals, who would think that they are a potential, one of the best defenses right now. The Cardinals are the number 1 team in 2 high shell looks, right? They've run cover 2 or cover 4 75 combined times. And right now they rank as the 5th best defense in terms of points per game allowed. The Chargers have run cover 2 or cover 4 68 times. The Chargers rank as the 4th best defense. The Seahawks rank as the 5th highest cover 2 shell. Packers 8th highest. Again, Packers best defense, Seahawks second best defense in terms of points allowed. So right now, the teams that are having the most success in points allowed are running the too high look. And again, I think for the Raiders, the approach that you're coming out here with that, hey, we're going to play a lot of zone defense, and a lot of it's going to be cover 3, and we're going to show you cover 3, that's a concern to me. More than that, we're playing a lot of base defense. We're using Roberts, Pratt, and of course, Devin White. We're using these 3 guys a lot out there, and even Tommy Eichenberg, I think, played a little bit. I believe it was this game. Don't quote me on that, but I did see that he had some snaps. So the Raiders are coming out here 128 times in base defense. You know, it's one of those things where linebackers are not as good as like corners and safeties in terms of coverage. And Jamal Adams, you know, he technically, you can say he's a linebacker, but we're running base defense. Jamal Adams is counted as technically a safety or a corner, not as a linebacker. So the base defense is with the other 3 guys, 128 of these snaps. So to me, the Raiders have to do a better job in terms of coverage. Now, you can continue to be a high, cover 3 shell. You can continue to do it, but we're going to play more cover 1. We got to blitz a little bit more. And we also got to mix coverage a little bit. You know, you show cover 1, run a cover 2 out of it. And I do think the Raiders tried this a little bit against the Commanders, but it just didn't work out all that well. So hopefully they're able to correct some of these issues. Darian Porter ended up playing 16 snaps for the Raiders. I didn't really notice him much out there. Right? I actually watched all 16 of his snaps. He didn't really do a whole lot, but as a corner, that's technically a good thing, right? So shout out to Darian Porter. Hopefully he continues to develop, and we'll see if he actually starts for the Raiders in this next game. The Bears are going to be a tough-ass matchup. Let's not overlook this team right here. We got the Bears and then the Colts. Those 2 games could easily be losses for the Raiders. We could be 1-4 heading into that game on the other side of that. So it's going to be an interesting couple of weeks for the Raiders. We'll see what ends up happening. Against the Bears, according to Vivid Seats, 50% of the seats in Allegiant Stadium will be occupied by the Bears. It's the hottest selling game of the week. This is wild. I hate the fact that the Raiders moved to Vegas. I understand from Mark Davis's perspective, he has more capital, and I know that's technically supposed to help in terms of being able to bring more players in. But, just the fact that every single one of our home games isn't even really a home game. Against the Chargers, we had like 90% Raider fans. That's because the Chargers themselves don't really have fans. So, it's one of those things where the Raiders showed up for that game. That was also opening night. But, 50% Bears fans is wild, right? There's no advantage to the Raiders. Imagine the Raiders going out there and saying, hey, we need to run a silent count in our home stadium. That's freaking embarrassing as hell, man. And, I'm not telling you guys to go out there and go to these games. At the end of the day, the Raiders got to win football games. They got to put a good roster out there. And right now we're struggling a little bit in multiple aspects. But let's wrap it up. Just one other update that I want to get into. The Tennessee Titans did make a change, and we are playing them, I think, in about 3 to 4 weeks. They're actually handing the play calling duties to quarterbacks coach Bo Hardegre. And if you guys are Raider fans, you guys remember, I believe 2 years ago, he became our interim play caller. I think this was Antonio Pierce's first year. This is when he took over specifically, when Josh McDaniels was fired. But he is taking over the play calling duties for the Tennessee Titans. And here's an interesting theory to kind of keep in mind. So Brian Callahan has a father named Bill Callahan. Most of you guys know him. Bill Callahan was a coach for the Raiders in the past as well. He is considered one of the best offensive line coaches, out there. And he is with the Titans right now. And there's a chance that the Titans could fire Brian Callahan as well as Bill Callahan if that time kind of comes. So if that does happen, hopefully the Raiders kind of keep an eye out for that. I would love to be able to bring the offensive line coach in to coach this offensive line. We need a little bit better coaching, but just something to kind of keep in mind. This could be a game that the Raiders could potentially win. We'll see what happens to the Titans, but just wanted to quickly bring that update to you guys. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below, man. What are you guys' thoughts on Jackson Powers-Johnson essentially getting that job back? What are you guys' thoughts on the secondary, the scheme? Do you guys see the same issues that I'm kind of seeing? Let me know down in the comments below. Thumbs up, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time with another video.